Hello ratbags, it's Jade Plays Games. Welcome to a Conan Exiles tutorial video. Pets is here across all systems, not just PC, Xbox One and the PS4. Now if you don't know, Pets is actually open to anyone. You do not have to complete the brand new dungeon. In a few update videos that I've spoken about, I thought you had to complete the dungeon, but you don't have to. But here's how you first unlock Pets. And this is what you can do without having to complete the dungeon. So, you need to find Jabal Sag's son. I've shown this off a few times now how to access the Midnight Grove, but you don't actually have to travel to the Midnight Grove. All you simply have to do is find him, talk to him, and he will give you the option to learn the religion. Now you don't learn Jabal Sag all the extra bits of it, and you won't be able to just call the avatar. All you're doing here is just unlocking the pet system. Here's the location once again on the map, just in case you're not too sure where to find him. You can see he's right to the west side of the map. And if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see it's right on the outskirts of this area near the den. When you find him, like I said, just go up to him, talk to him, and there you go. You can see you can learn the religion and you can buy the Midnight Potion, which will enable you to teleport to the Midnight Grove dungeon. But once you've learned the religion, that's it. You don't have to actually travel to it. What you will be gaining by doing that dungeon and completing it is the lures and the mark of Jabal Sag, which can be useful and beneficial. Also, if you want to get greater animals, so you want to get the better versions which can have buffs on them and also feed them better food so they can get temporary buffs, then you will need to learn the Jabal Sag religion, because that's the only way to get Shade Bloom. You need Shade Bloom to spice meats and certain foods, and these are pets' favourite foods. So when you feed it to them, they can give you better resources, they'll give them buffs, and if you want greater versions, so if you want a greater hyena rather than a normal one, you do need that Shade Bloom to give more chance of getting it. You can use more valuable food sources. It does have like a chart of what their favourite foods are depending on what pet it is, and sometimes you can get a percentage chance of still getting a greater pet, but if you want to get more chances, then Shade Bloom is definitely required. So we're going to go over all of that in this video. I'm going to be showing you the pens and giving you the top tips, because there is a lot of confusion going around at the moment with what animals you can tame in what pens. So let's explain the pens first. You have the standard pen, then you have the reinforced pen, and then you have the armoured pen. Now I've seen some videos claim that you need different pens for different animals, so the higher the sort of power animal, then you're going to need the top tier pens. But this isn't true. I think early on in the first stages of testing this on PC, they made it that Tier 1 would only tame things like hyenas, shellbacks, ostriches. Tier 2 would allow you to tame things like tigers and bears, and then Tier 3 would be things like the frost cubs and stuff like that, so you could get dire wolves. But I'm going to be showing you a little later that you can actually tame any creature in the Tier 1 pen. If you want a greater version though of getting a sort of creature, then maybe that's where the tiers come into effect, that if you have Tier 3 you'll get more of a chance of getting, but it's not necessarily that way. To get the pets to tame, you simply have to go out in the world obviously and gather them up. That is going to be a little bit harder than you think. Apart from shellbacks and some fawns, some of the other creatures are incredibly hard to find. I spent over an hour and a half running around the map of Conan Exiles, looking around trying to see if I could find any of the baby creatures. I went to some of the spots that I knew some of the creatures always kind of spawn, and rarely did I actually find a baby, the only one being a rhino. So what I'm going to do is do a little bit more research, and I'm going to come back with each individual location for every single creature in the game, so that you can go ahead and tame whatever baby creature you want so that it becomes your pet. There are some traders that will sell you really specific creatures like camel calves and eggs for specific creatures. So I'm going to use them and put that into a little small mini guide as well, showing you every secret rare trader that will sell you pets. Now if you're finding it really hard to find your pets, if you really want to get some on your single player world, or maybe you run your own server, you can spawn them in. Just simply type what exactly creature it is. Generally if you type in cub or egg, you'll get a lot of the creatures, or you may have to really dig up exactly what they are running around. So things like gazelle is going to be a fawn, but you get the idea. So once you've got the creatures, obviously it's a lot easier. They are quite heavy though, So be warned, if you're running out just to get pets, don't bring loads of resources with you, or make sure you've got plenty of small little bases. Now one thing about the Jabal Sag dungeon is there are quite a few baby pets in there. So if you do want to kill two birds with one stone, I suggest you try and clear out the dungeon if you've got a good level and you've got lots of arrows, and you try and pick up at least one of every enemy creature. So you'll find the pens in the survival tab in feats, just simply unlock them and there you go, you can start your route to taming any creature in Conan more or less. As usual, just like some of the tame makers or the thrall makers, you've got to be a certain level to get tier 2 or tier 3, but as I've stated at the beginning, you don't really need tier 2 or tier 3 unless you're really going out there to try and get greater pets. You can tame any pet just using tier 1. You're going to need a carpentry bench to actually make the pens. So you can see the first one's going to be 300 stone, 400 wood and 20 twine. Once you've crafted that and you've got your creatures, go ahead and pop them in the pen. They should fit all in the top there just by pressing RT or R2 on your controller. So once you've got your pet in there, it just remains for you to put the correct food in. And depending on what they eat, if they're a carnivore, you're going to be putting things like meats, fats, etc. and they will chomp on that. Other vegetarian creatures are going to just eat fibre. You can pretty much tame every vegetarian creature or omnivore creature with fibre, and carnivores do need some sort of meat, even if it's feral flesh or something like that. Now if you're on official servers, it's going to take a lot longer to tame your pets. But if you're running your own single player world or a private server, you can adjust the times. Just go into settings, all the way over to server settings, and at the bottom you'll see the pet and hunger tab. If you want to speed up the pet taming system, all you have to do is put it to 0.0001, or basically all the way to the left. For some reason, if you want to make it harder, you can put it all the way to the right. You can also adjust how much they can go without food and whether or not they take any damage. You can also adjust how much food they do get from each time they eat. Pets aren't just there to protect you, you can actually use them to get resources. And having them in the pens, they'll actually produce resources when they eat food that you give them. There are special boxes as well that you can leave out, and I'm going to be showing you them too. So, whack something in there and you can see I've got the shellbake and the antelope both being tamed up because they like plant fibre. They also produce dung, which can be useful for other stuff later on. So let's take the shellbake out and let's take my antelope out. And there you go, I've got my antelope and my shellback, and it will do pretty much whatever I want it to do. You can get them to follow you, you can get them to move and guard, or you can open up their inventory so that you can take a look at what food they need. It does show you at the bottom in picture form what their preferred food is and what they will consider the bare minimum. Just hold the square button or the X and you'll be able to choose them options. For any reason, if you run too far ahead of your creatures, they are meant to teleport towards you, or sometimes they will actually teleport back to your base. As you can see though, most of them can keep up fairly well. Once you want it to stop following, just put on the command. And like I said, you can also get them to guards as well once you put them in a different area. And they'll simply guard any zone that you place them. You won't be able to pick them up though once you've deployed them. So how does it work that you get the variations where you get greater creatures? The greater creatures are got more health and they can do more damage, so it's worth it trying to get some of the special foods. Now there are foods around the world that you can get to help with that chance. For example, the shellback eats exotic shellfish. By feeding a shellback exotic shellfish, you'll get a 10% more chance of being able to get a greater shellback. There are other things as well, desert berries, highland berries. Some of these may give you a small percentage chance as well. But if you really want to have the best chance of getting greater creatures, you will need to complete the Jabal Sag dungeon. For ostriches, if you use desert berries or highland berries, there's a 40% chance you'll get a greater version. But if you use shade spiced desert berries or shade spiced highland berries, you can increase that to 45%. Otherwise they will simply eat grubs and insects and you'll just get a normal ostrich. So let's put some shade spiced highland berries in and see what happens. You can see I got 2 normal ostriches, I didn't get the greater version. Now you're not always guaranteed to just get greater versions, sometimes you can get better coloured ones, or in instances of the hyenas you got more chance of getting a specific striped hyena. So feral flesh for hyenas, you've got 20% chance of getting something like a greater hyena. But if you used raw stringy meat, you've got 30% chance. You can see you can use pretty much any meat though to actually do the job. And there you go, there's the hyenas that I tamed up. Now let's see if we can really try and get a hold of one of these creatures. That is going to be the greater version. I've put 5 whelps inside, now let's put the 5 bits of meat. Now out of the 4 it does look like we've managed to get a special one. So there's the normal one. Now let's put the great hyena down. And there you go, that is the great hyena. So like I said, it's pretty grindy. You've got to get enough of these baby animals to bring them back to your pens. Make sure you've got all the food, and you might not even be guaranteed a chance of getting what you want. But it can be worth it. They have significantly larger health pools and they do a hell of a lot more damage, with some of them also applying certain effects like crippling. Now for these ones, I'm not going to necessarily go through every single one trying to get a greater version. I'm just going to chuck in what type of meats that they all kind of take, and we'll see what happens. So the raw tough meat is getting eaten by the tiger cub. If we put perfect cut of meat, you can see I'm taming up 3 of the other carnivores. Remember, this is the spiced meats that you need that shade bloom from. Boars like mushrooms, so you need shade spice puffer mushrooms. And there you go, you can see I've got the grown up version of the panther, the boar, the wolf, the tiger and the leopard or cheetah. I can't remember which one that is. You can also tame spiders as well. Now spiders also do like a particular type of meat. Basically anything demonic. They'll eat blood, fat grubs or insects. And there you go, I've got what looks to be a variation of the normal spider. Bear in mind as well that not every single creature does come in a greater version. So in that instance you're going to have to just resort to plant fibre or basic meats. Now some of these guys do have good uses as well. Some of them can carry lots of items like the camel. And as I said, when you put them back in a pen and you feed them their favourite food, they also can produce special resources. Now if you're looking for a rock nose, don't look for the eggs. What you actually need is the pebble noses. As you can see, if you try just putting a rock nose egg in here, it's not going to work. In fact, you're going to need to use compost and a planter to make them into things like spiderlings or the pebble noses first. Anything in an egg does need to go through that process. If we put a pebble nose in and we feed it its favourite food, which is shade spiced iron ore, we can then have our own little baby rock nose. But watch what happens when I put a spider in the pen and I've got it tamed up. Then I bring it into my inventory. You can go back over to a tier 1 pen, pop your spider in. Now let's put the insects in. And as you can see, you get a 10% chance of making ichor. Again, it's not maybe the most cost effective way of doing things, but if you do have huge surpluses of insects or fibre or some of the lower tiered foods, you can do this. Some of the creatures produce things like feathers, some of them just produce dung. So unless you're going to actually use any of the creatures for something specific, always keep your spare ones inside an animal pen, or at least keep them in a box that you won't actually be placing them anywhere. Because as soon as you place them, you can't actually pick them up again. So as you can see, there's not really that much difference between each pen. You can get lots of creatures from all 3 pens, and ignore any advice you see in wikis or from other YouTubers. You can actually tame any of the pets in tier 1 pens. It doesn't have to be tier 2 or tier 3. You can go ahead and put a rhino in tier 1. You can put a wolf in tier 1 and you will get a wolf or a rhino back. But as far as I'm aware, if you want the best chance of getting the greater creatures, you might need the higher tier and the higher food. You can place feed boxes around. And these are what your animals and your creatures are going to be utilising to get their food, so you don't have to manually feed them. On the right hand side, it clearly lists exactly what creatures are being fed, and even just one box is going to give you quite a lot of distance covered for your creatures. So you can only have one pet follow you at any one time. Make sure you've got that bearing in mind. And like I said, it's really hard to find these pets. I will be doing separate individual videos talking about their locations, what their favourite food exactly is, and what they produce when you've put them in a pen completely. But this was just a very rough basic guide to the pet system for Conan Exiles, Xbox One, PS4 and PC. If this video has helped you out, let me know. Hit me up with a like, and I hope this has got rid of some confusion regarding some of the pens in what terms you can do and what you can't do. I am Jade Plays Games for all the best information about early access games, and keep up to date with Conan Exiles. Make sure you've got notifications turned on. Don't forget to like, and I'll see you rat bags for another one very soon.